What unique value does an independent review add to a proposal that might not be available with an internal review team? Imagine having a fresh set of eyes, unbiased and experienced, scrutinizing every aspect of your proposal. This is an independent reviewer's unique edge. But what exactly sets them apart from an internal review team? It's not just about finding errors or polishing content. It's about uncovering hidden strengths and mitigating overlooked risks that can make or break your success. So get ready to discover how this critical step could be the game changer in your proposal's journey from three subject matter experts in the field from Lohfeld Consulting. Jacob Bertram has 10 years of experience leading proposal reviews from the government side of the house. Before leaving the General Services Administration as a contracting officer, he led a team of over 100 professionals administering over 4,500 complex business partner agreements with annual spending on contracts exceeding $40 billion. Doug Kimberger has a PhD in physics and over 40 years of experience in the technology and business field. He helps clients in verticals including security, defense, energy, and the environment capture and review proposals. Lisa Pave has more than 25 years of experience in business development, capture, and proposal management, process improvement, and training. She's an APMP fellow and holds APMP professional level certification. She's also a Project Management Institute certified project management professional. Let's start off with you, Jacob. Why are independent reviews of proposals so important?
So I started my career doing independent. So when I started at DCAA, one of my first projects was working on a proposal in Zelensk, Russia. So they had an issue there where a nuclear reactor was very similar to Chernobyl, and the international community was very concerned that the same thing could happen. But also, as part of it, the hot water from the reactor heated the town of Zelensk. So that was like one of my first things I was working on right out of college, which was very interesting working, with the prime contractor and subcontractors and also the government of Russia going through that. So I was about 21 years old looking at this with like brand new fresh eyes, and I just started asking questions because that's what I do. So I was able to look at things in a different way than the people that prepared the proposal, and also in a different way from the people that prepared the RFP. I was able to start asking questions as time goes on. Went from there to various other proposals, some that were more exciting than others, and then getting into evaluating as part of the source selection evaluation boards, really looking at things very independently, and where I had the luxury of even greater lens of not being so close to it. So I wasn't involved in the RFP, wasn't involved in proposal preparation. I was just involved in evaluating the proposals that came in front of us and able to really dig in there and ask things. Now working with the Lohfeld team, I'm able to go in and look at proposals and look at it through the customer's eyes, and also see where things might not make perfect sense. And for example, something that might make perfect sense to me might not make sense to Brenda, and it might not make sense to the customer. And that's why having that independent check on there of somebody who hasn't been involved in the process and living it day to day is very helpful. And also it's very hard to edit your own writing. So when I'm reading something I wrote, it sounds perfect. But then maybe a year later, I go back, I'm like, whoa, what was I thinking? And getting someone in there to take a look at it, especially from a compliance standpoint. So having an independent compliance check. So not just the compliance checklist that the proposal team might be using, but having the independent person build their own checklist, going through the RFP or funding document, request funding opportunity announcements, building their own compliance document because something might have been missed. So always looking for compliance and an outside eye to make sure that it's going to look great for the customer in the beginning.
Doug, when a company invites an independent reviewer to participate, what action should they take to ensure a successful review?
A number of things. They should first prepare. They should have the solicitation data, RFP, industry day briefings, things of that sort available for the reviewers. They should behave as does the government. They should develop materials for reviewers that mimic the government evaluators. evaluation scheme, definitions, score sheets, things of that sort. And these should all be based on the solicitation. They should lastly then conduct the review as would the government. They should provide guidance to reviewers to maximize all the time that they're spending, the experience that they bring to the review. They should have their review leads, whether they're internal or independent review leads, have them be experienced in government evaluations. And then they should debrief in ways that actually improve the product, not criticize the proposal.
How does the perspective of an independent reviewer differ from that of the proposal team, Lisa?
We really take a fresh perspective. We're not the company drinking its own bathwater, reading the proposal as if it's a novel and just making comments on it, oftentimes comments that aren't particularly actionable. When we come in and review as a government evaluator, we're taking a fresh perspective and we're reviewing the proposal based solely on the evaluation factors and subfactors in their order of importance using a government score sheet. So that really gives a different perspective than simply reading and commenting on a proposal.
How does the perspective of an independent reviewer differ from one done in-house?
It's very much that outside check, very much independent. It's something that really can't be done in-house because you might have jargon in your company that everybody knows. You might call your accounting system one thing, you might call your timesheet something, and it might be completely different than what your customers use. And as much as the government loves jargon, and they have their own and they force it on to everyone else, that doesn't work on the other side. When they're reading it, it doesn't make any sense. So for example, when I was at DCMA, we called our timesheet system PLAS, Performance Labor Accounting System. So we'd always talk about, I'm going to PLAS, did you PLAS? And then we would also use that language out with other people. And so we'd go out to contractor employees and start talking about PLASing. Well, of course, nobody knows what that means, right? So having someone from outside of the company come in and say, hey, that's the company jargon, or that's your customer jargon, or nobody's going to understand that. You need to have someone really look at it from the customer's eyes that isn't involved in the day-to-day.
What are some common challenges faced during independent proposal reviews, and how can they be effectively addressed?
Based on my earlier comments, the most common challenges I see are first, not mirroring what we expect to occur on the government side, and two, not preparing or perhaps training the reviewers. For the first of those, we need to learn from previous or similar solicitations or procurements. We need to ask a lot of questions during capture. We need to learn what they do so that we can mimic that. For the second, we need to train and practice. We need to get teams of reviewers and in particular reviewers, reviewing leads that are familiar with the processes and have them prepare well in advance for the review. I see too many reviews happen too close to the time that the preparations actually began. And then make sure that all the reviewers can actually contribute, not just their time, but contribute meaningful feedback. I want to add actually a couple of other thoughts. First, this concept of not just preparing, but leading and being familiar with the process and all, that's where independent reviewers can really make a difference. I think that they can, they're steeped in these government processes. We do this all the time, and so we're familiar with it. And then I think maybe the thing that I would want to stress even most of all, speaking of being steeped in something, is that there's a fundamental challenge in proposal reviews across the board, and that is identifying and scoring strengths. It's becoming a central element for government evaluations. And so while the topic of strength goes well beyond our discussion today, for sure, but suffice it to say that strengths are becoming so important that they're making all the difference between winning and losing. So they should be central to our reviews. And to overlook strengths in our reviews is just a fatal error. And independent reviewers, again, we are so keen and on this concept of strengths. We focus on it so regularly and routinely that we bring that focus to all of the reviews where these independent reviewers contribute.
Can you share a challenging experience you faced as an independent reviewer and how you overcame it?
I think the most challenging situation is getting the team to understand the importance of evaluating like a government evaluator. Oftentimes they'll tell me, well, what good does it do to fill out the score sheet and tell us what our strengths, weaknesses, deficiencies, and risks are? How is that actionable? And I explained to them the way we do it is when we find a strength, great, we document what the strength is, but we also look for potential strengths. And that's where the actionable comments come in. So we may comment that here you have a potential strength, but the problem is that you don't have sufficient substantiation or evidence of the benefits. So this could be a strength if you add in those metrics. Or, for example, we see a weakness here, a flaw in your approach that could cause risk. Well, it's actionable. Describe the risk and propose a mitigation. So the score sheets really do result in actionable recommendations for the recovery team.
In your opinion, how does an independent review help the success of a proposal?
Independent review is really going to make sure that you don't get rejected based on a simple compliance item, or that one thing was forgotten, or something was said in the wrong file format. When I was at GSA, people loved to reject proposals just so they didn't have to look at them. And for example, if the pricing spreadsheet needed to be in Excel, but the supplier or the contractor submitted it in PDF and said, hey, ask us for the Excel and we'll send it to you, they would immediately reject it and everything would have to be done over again. So the independent check is going to check for things like that, going to point things out that may have been missed. And it's also going to look at things through the eyes of the customer and make sure the storytelling is there. Everything from, cover page and graphics and colors and all of that, making sure that it's really telling the message all the way through.
Can you share any data points that illustrate the impact of independent reviews on proposal outcomes?
Yes, I can. And actually, I think the key concept here is metrics. And we all know that that for effective capture and proposal development, there are a lot of metrics that go much deeper than just win rate. I mean, we all focus on that so much, but there are others that we should be focusing on. And we should look for other metrics like conformance to our 7 quality measures. Again, it's another topic that goes beyond our discussion today, but these are things that evaluators have told us matter to them. They have impact. And so we should be thoughtful of those metrics, those 7 quality measures when we do reviews. And again, going back to strengths, as I just mentioned, the metric of strengths bid versus strengths observed or scored, that's a terrific indicator of an effective proposal. We should track these in our reviews, and we should look for improvement over time. It's some of these more granular metrics where we see independent reviewers bring insight. The proposal team and even internal reviewers, frankly, often find it difficult to objectively score on these points. The fresh eyes that show us where we need to improve, in particular in the area of strengths, are things that independent reviewers focus on routinely, and some internal team members find it a bit more difficult to focus on.
How do you see the role of independent proposal reviews evolving in the future? Are there any emerging trends or technologies that you believe will influence independent proposal reviews?
Well, I think the independent reviewers will probably use technology more. We have been experimenting, as the government has, with the use of AI to assist with proposal reviews. AI can, of course, not only assist with looking for keywords and phrases that are important to the solution, but it could also help the reviewer or mock government evaluator in identifying risks, questions, problem areas, issues with a certain approach. So I think that will definitely be a change, and it's an important change because the government is using technology more and more to do their own proposal evaluations. So I think that is something we'll see in the future.
What advice would you give to proposal teams embarking on an independent review for the first time?
Start early. So make sure that the independent reviewer has enough time to do the job in a manner that's going to make sense. I would say at least give the reviewer a week to take a look at it, or just at least start with the RFP, let the reviewer start looking at templates, compliance checks, how their file system is going to look. So that way when they get it, that way they can do that independent review and independent check starting right away. And it's going to be very checklist driven. So is the cover page there? Does it have the right information? Is the tax ID number? Is the DUNS number? Whatever numbers that might be there is just making sure that's all the way there and going page by page all the way through it. When I was a young contract specialist at Department of Energy, we actually asked for hard copy proposals. This wasn't all that long ago, but it was still a thing for a while. And since I was intern-like at the time still, my job was to go through the 2 binders that were being delivered and make sure they were exactly the same. And every single page was the same. So I started going through that. I noticed that they were different, that different versions of the proposal got sent to the print shop, different binders came, and that was a really big issue that we had to work through. So the independent check can go through that, but you need to give the reviewer enough time to check everything, even if it's not a printed page anymore, that make sure all the files are there, that they're in the right format, the naming, the nomenclature is right. And that's one of the things that the government may reject for. So if they have a subject line that they want, is for the letter, or if they have the naming convention of the file that be done in a certain manner, then make sure all of that's there and there's no detail that is too small that the independent reviewer shouldn't be able to look at. So getting in touch with someone early, making sure that they have the right RFP that they're working with, they have all the amendments, and then just start feeding documents all the way through. As soon as the technical volume is done, get that done. The administrative volume or the management volume, making sure that everything's there. And then they can start checking, but also they're going to look to make sure you're telling the same story all the way across the volumes. So that's one of the things that you want the independent reviewer to check, is that if you say one thing in your technical volume or your subcontracting plan, like, hey, this is going to go to small business, or this is going to go to a hub zone, making sure that the pricing volume is showing the same thing. So if this line item is reserved for hub zone, make sure in the pricing volume, it says the hub zone supplier as well. So that way you get that same consistency all the way across. And that's really one thing that it does take time to check, because the government may have 3, 4, 5 people reviewing it, where you might just have one. And if they're going to catch up on those inconsistencies much faster because they have a team of people looking at it.
How can teams best prepare for and incorporate feedback from an independent review?
Again, we're talking about preparation here, and that hinges, I think, greatly on knowing how to mimic what the government does. So if we prepare our reviewers with these evaluation schemes and score sheets that I mentioned before, then the feedback across the review team, across all of the reviewers, will be consistent. It'll be pointed at improving and scoring, which is really what we should all be thoughtful of. And the effectiveness of the proposal is something that we'll be focused on. It's this preparation to behave as the government does. So when we have reviewers that are wordsmithing, they are not achieving this consistent, effective sort of feedback that teams can make use of. And then incorporating it. So if we do that preparation, incorporating those feedback comments that we could get from our reviewers becomes more straightforward. It's the feedback focuses on strengths and weaknesses, the scoring elements that the government focuses on. Those things are addressed first. The team in incorporating and recovering from a review addresses those first. Then other metrics, like the 7 quality measures, for instance, can be addressed as time allows. So the prioritization of the feedback is much more easily done.
What's been your most rewarding experience as an independent reviewer?
I think the most rewarding experience is when the team says, wow, you really gave us a completely different perspective than our own internal reviewers. And for those on our customers team who may serve on the mock source selection evaluation board with us, it's them learning how to take this perspective as a government evaluator and being able to apply that in the future. So I think that's the most rewarding thing, when we can really show them how to improve the proposal, by highlighting their strengths and mitigating weaknesses, risks, and deficiencies. And of course, the most rewarding thing is when that results in a win.
Jacob, is there any advice you'd like to give companies wanting to schedule an independent review?
My biggest piece of advice is always compliance focused. So start building your own internal systems to make sure that you will be in compliance all the way throughout, not just with the proposal, but also contract execution as well. But getting in touch with someone to do that in advance, I think is a really good thing, and making sure you start thinking of it at the beginning, not as an afterthought. So if you wait till the end, or like, hey, the proposal's due, on Friday and today's Wednesday, can you do a check? There's not really a lot that you can do in a couple days. So start thinking about it at the beginning, is how are we going to be compliant? How are we going to build compliant systems? How are we going to make sure that what we deliver is compliant? But then those independent reviews at the very end are going to be important, and how do you schedule them in? So if the proposal is running late, don't try to take time away at the end from the independent check. So that's one of the things that we see sometimes too, is that, hey, the schedule's been built out, it's tight, everyone's busy, and then things get delayed, and then there's not much time for a compliance check at the end, and all of your work can go for the wayside if you're not compliant going in.
In summary, Doug, what would you say is the most important benefit of an independent review of proposals?
Independent reviews and independent reviewers, again, I said this exact phrase before, they're routinely focused on the things that I discussed. They know how to prepare a review team. They know how to mirror what the government does. A lot of government agencies do, they're habitual like we are, and we are familiar with the kinds of things that we need to do to mirror their behavior. And they know about how critical strengths are, and about how they are dealt with by government evaluators. So they're not overly close to the proposal team, who might either miss some of these scoring elements, or believe that an incomplete or an ineffective strength might score. Independent reviewers are not typically swayed by that. It's the objectivity that keeps the proposal on track towards winning.
Lisa, do you have any final thoughts or key takeaways you'd like to share with our audience?
I think the most challenging aspect of recovering from a mock source selection evaluation board is typically the evidence. So often teams will put forth their proposed strengths, and my criticism is, okay, that's a great potential strength, but you haven't substantiated it with metrics that show that your feature does result in the benefits that you are describing. And benefits are ultimately the most important thing, because when the government comes up with their rationale for awarding to you, it's based on the benefits. But those benefits can't be vague, they can't be unsubstantiated, they have to be clear and proven. So I think that is really a biggie that I find is common across all companies, is failure to fully substantiate your strengths.
Do you have any final takeaways from the government's perspective, Jacob?
The government does independent reviews all the time in-house. So it could be having someone that wasn't working on the assignment. So if let's say you're a DCAA auditor, you have an independent review from one of your teammates. They'll review all of your files and your documents before it goes to your supervisor. So that's one form of independent reviews, and the government's very big on that, in that way, but also in contracting offices, reviewing RFPs that go out, negotiation memorandums, etc. Having that independent check, that second look, that's definitely one of the things that they do. So replicating those processes and being able to talk about your overall compliance. So when you submit a proposal, what does your proposal checklist look like? What does your response checklist and everything else like that look like? That could be very important if the government is looking at your estimating system and how you put together estimates. And having those independent checks there help you get certified systems as well.
It's clear that the value these experts bring is immeasurable. Their external perspectives, free from the confines of internal biases, provide clarity and objectivity that is crucial in fine-tuning proposals to meet clients' exacting standards. Our panelists have not only highlighted the importance of independent reviews, but they've also shared practical advice and personal experiences that underscore the transformative impact of independent reviews. For more information about acquiring independent review services, contact Beth Wingate at bwingate@lohfeldconsulting.com or click on one of these relevant videos or blogs contained in the video description to learn more.